Saber, she's our gal. If she doesn't need foreign service, then no one does. Hello everybody, this is My Profile is Great, and I decided to jump right back into the world of anime lately because there's been so many shows coming out of the woodwork, just oozing all over the place, and I have yet to explore any of it. I had kind of taken a complete hiatus, was reading books, all those boring things that don't involve anime. So I looked at the list of shows that have been recommended by certain sites, which is always a good thing because I don't like to have to filter through the crap. I don't like picking things at random and sort of saying, oh, I'm going to watch this and see if it works. No. I've stopped being that kind of person. I used to be that. I used to be able to sit all the way through Maids vs. Butlers and just see where that little shitty show was going. Now that doesn't really work for me. No, I don't deal with the crap. So one of the shows that was on the very top of the list, as far as things that you need to watch, was Fate Zero. And I looked at this and I went, wait, Fate Zero? So is this related to this certain show that I really liked way back in the day called Fate Stay Night? And what do you know, it was! Some of the same characters and everything. There's Saber sitting there in like the promotional art. There's all these characters. There's Rin Tosaka, it's a little girl. And I went, okay, I gotta start watching this. Some history of my relationship with Fate Stay Night as a franchise. I really liked the anime. It had a lot of problems, sure. There's story issues all over the place. It's probably a product of it being an adaptation. And that's just, I hate that, really, adaptation decay. And I tried reading the visual novel after the fact because I was like, okay, this is going to be even better than the anime that I already liked because it's going to fix all these issues. I didn't get very far in the visual novel, mainly because, well, it's just not my style of storytelling, really. It feels like you're reading a novel, like, crammed into an anime, and it doesn't fit for me. I tried it for a few hours, got bored, and went to play video games for a while. The movie Unlimited Blade Works sucked. I hated that movie. I felt like they were obviously trying to take one of the arcs from the visual novel and cram it into an hour and 30 minutes, and it didn't. Ugh. It was just a big old disaster. Like, if people said, and I've heard some people say this, that the anime was a disaster adaptation, the movie is one of, like, the worst things ever. It was just a big old mess. If you can look past the pretty animation and the pretty action, there was nothing there to celebrate. Nothing there to get attached to. And that's really a bummer, because now we're entering Fate Zero, and I'm kind of sitting here going, wow, maybe there's actually more to this franchise than I even realized at first. Because this show is really dark. It's very mature. There's a lot of planning and scheming between all the characters going on. And it's got all the things where you avoid the cliches, but then you also embrace them that I always encourage in storytelling all the time. So you're sitting here watching it and you're going, how was this even forged from Fate Stay Night? I was sitting here going, quality-wise, this completely demolishes it. This is in a completely different league. It's like when you watch Caprica, which is the prequel to Battlestar Galactica, and you go, how the hell did they get this show from this show? They're just so completely different, and they don't seem to really correlate all that much, but then when they do, it's really insightful, and it gives you a different outlook of the other show. Both Battlestar Galactica and Caprica, by the way, are really great. Maybe that's a bad comparison, but it's the one that came out of my earlobe at that particular time. One of the plot elements of this entire show is that they're fighting over this Holy Grail, right? It's basically a big old battle royale between all these different magicians from all these different clans, and they summon these heroic spirits to fight by their side. So you've got the Saber, who's basically a female version of King Arthur, you have the Lancer, and they all have these different mythologies behind them, and it makes things really interesting, and I think from the first 4 episodes that I've watched so far, they integrate the mythology better into the show than they do in the other anime, the original adaptation. Like in the original show, it took you a really long time before they revealed that Saber was basically King Arthur. In this show, they discuss it almost right away, and you get the angle from it, the fact that they like changed history because they didn't want King Arthur to be a woman, and I was kind of like, wow, that's really interesting, and it gives this character a particular kind of depth that wasn't really there before in the original anime. And what they did with this character of Saber, she's still like the main servant that they really focus in on. Like, she's the star of the show in a lot of the episodes. And here she is, she's dressed in like this really cool suit, and she's blending into her current environment of like the city. And I thought it was so cool that they did that, because then when she goes into like her King Arthur armor, there's such this contrast of character. The fact that she was a servant from a different, completely separate time period, and she's come into the contemporary, and she knows all about these contemporary things, like through her transfer to that particular decade. What ends up happening is that when these servants are summoned, they get like all the particular information of that era almost installed into them like a program. So you go through, it avoids all those fish out of water jokes that they could have gone for, and instead, okay, she has all this knowledge of this stuff, but she also has the knowledge of the past. So it gives them a richer depth. They're like immortals in a way, like vampires, but the cool Anne Rice ones, not the sparkly Twilight ones. All the battles are really well done so far, and they feel very brief compared to a lot of anime. During episode 4, you started to get a little bit of the monologuing, where here's one character over here, and it's like, oh, his weakness is in his armor. Here's another character over here, like internal monologuing of how they're going to defeat this other person, and then they'll do a few strikes, and then they'll start thinking again, and then they'll do a few strikes, and I thought that was a little bit disappointing. But then you see the way that the action is directed, and you see like every blow and every little movement that they do. It isn't just a big old mashing of weird superpower special effects. You're really into it, and you feel every blow as the characters are like going through the motions. And that's what makes a good action sequence, is that you've got a lot of crazy crap going on, but you can actually tell what's going on. It's not a big like Michael Bay sword fight. So I appreciate that. I appreciate almost everything in this show. There's a lot of really dark, disturbing stuff. Like one of the characters from the original Fate Stay Night anime is seen like getting like, I don't know how to appropriately say it. She's basically getting sucked up by a bunch of worms, and you see the dead in her eyes, and it's a really disturbing image, and it helps to get across one of the other character's motives for why he's doing what he's doing. This happens in the first pilot episode, which is about an hour long, and it was at this point where I'm like, okay, this is no bars messed up. When the gritty comes down to it, they're going to show it. They're not just going to kind of reference it. They're going to show you the dark, grisly stuff. And I always appreciate that in a work like this, just as long as they don't get too over the top. And this is very classy. It's a very classy show. I think that's a good adjective to go for it. So if you're into Fate Stay Night, you like the series, you like the doujinshi, or not the doujinshi, the visual novel, you will enjoy this anime, I think. I've been enjoying the hell out of it, and you can look forward to my final impressions that will probably be a little more structured than this once I actually get around to finishing the series, when the series has come full circle. So with that, I shall kiss the camera. Mwah. I love you, camera.